Welcome back, everybody. Nuts and Bolt Sports. Raj, Jordan, Henry here, as always. A little bit different stuff now. We got some trades. We've got some free agent signings. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about here. Let's go ahead and get right into it because I think like that first hour of the day was kind of like quiet, and then all of a
Too
sudden a
quiet.
bunch of stuff started pouring in. And we'll save the headline for the second thing because that one's a little bit unofficial, but
Mhm.
seems like it could be happening. But let's start with the one official trade that did go down, and that's that Chris Paul is going to be sent to the Suns for Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, among some other assets. We had kind of seen this coming. I know we got some reports last week that CP3 was possibly most likely going to be moved to the Suns. Seems like that was the destination of choice for him, which I think is pretty interesting. I feel like he's just sort of clawing his way closer and closer to Los Angeles until he's finally back in Los Angeles, maybe with the Lakers next year with LeBron getting his ring that way. This is a pretty cool move for Chris Paul. I don't necessarily know if it's the right move for him, but I like the fact that he's going and playing with these young guys. Obviously, a team that showed us a lot of potential there at the end of the bubble in Phoenix. I'm going to be sort of a mentor figure, I assume, for Devin Booker, and I think he's going to be a really good anchor for that young team, the veteran presence that we saw in OKC. I think he's going to bring that to Phoenix, and it's probably going to be even more successful in experiment there in Phoenix because that team I think is a little bit more talented than OKC was before they got him. Jordan, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move. He's gonna, I think, be very beneficial in terms of his leadership. We saw what he did last year in Oklahoma City, helping guide the development of SGA and Dort and some of those guys, and obviously leading them to the playoffs when nobody, thought that they would be anywhere near the postseason. And I think he's going to do wonders for Devin Booker, who has shown that he can take over a lot of games. We saw they obviously went undefeated in the bubble and just missed out on the playing game by a little bit there. So they're on the cusp. They've been on the rise the last couple of years. They've made some good moves. They have a nice young core with Booker, Ayton. They still have like some nice, kind of underrated pieces in Cam Johnson. They had to obviously get rid of Rubio and Oubre, who were huge for them last year, but that's the cost when you get Chris Paul, who's one of the 5 to 6 best point guards we've ever had in this league. Even at a declining age, I think Paul still he's shown that he's still got some less in the tank as long as he can stay healthy. That's always kind of the biggest knock with him is he gets hurt towards the end of the year. But if they can manage his minutes properly, I think I don't know if Phoenix is I think it was Kendrick Perkins or some other ESPN personality who tweeted that they were looking at that being like a 5 seed. I wouldn't go that far. I think you can make the case that if they play well, add another piece or two, and develop the right way, they can make a run at that 6 to 9 range, which for them is a drastic improvement from what they've had over the past decade. So I don't think it was. I agree with you. Maybe it wasn't the best location for Chris Paul, but I think it was probably the best move for Phoenix given like what the other available pieces are. So I think they did a good job, and you got to keep Booker happy too. That's kind of like the underrated part too. Is there's the rumors and whispers surfacing that he might be wanting out soon enough because he hasn't played on good teams. So you got to swing for the fences with this one.
Yeah, I mean, like what you say about them being like a not reaching that sort of 5 seed like a lot of people are saying. I don't think that's even a knock on this Suns team. I just think
No,
it's
not at
a
all.
testament to how good the West is and how competitive that conference is. And this team could win 45 to 48 games. I think they have the potential to do that, but that is maybe good for 9 seed in the West, and that's just kind of a testament to how good that conference is. Henry, what do you think about this trade?
I mean, I like it, especially at this point for Chris Paul's career. He's ring chasing, but he's trying to find the best place to do so. He had a good run in OKC, but obviously, they don't have the pieces for a championship run. But I feel like the Suns, I'm not saying, all they're title contenders or anything like that, but I feel like the Suns, especially in that 8-0 bubble run, have shown people that they're ready to make that jump. That Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are ready to make that jump. So what they showcased there, that's another reason, why that place looked pretty appealing to Chris Paul, and train there. Like, let's see what the Thunder gave up. Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre Jr., Ty Jerome, Jalen Leck, and draft picks. And I feel bad for Kelly Oubre because I don't know if you guys saw their photo shoot with the new jerseys. It's just a marketing 101 from the Suns. They knew what was going to happen, probably. And then, so feel pretty bad for the guy. But for Chris Paul, like I was saying, at this point in his career, I like it because he's going to be a mentor for Devin Booker and the younger guys, DeAndre Ayton and all them. And they're going to look at Chris Paul like, Devin Booker's not the sole leader anymore. Chris Paul is the true definition of a leader and a point guard. So to have that on your team, to see what he did with an LKC team that, you know, lacks a player that's near the top 25 players in the league, you know, there's nowhere near that in OKC. But now Devin Booker is a top 15 player in the league. DeAndre Ayton is creeping up there, you know, is one of the best bigs in the league. So can I see the Suns, you know, fighting for that 7th seed, for that maybe that 6th seed? Maybe I can see it now, especially now that, you know, transitioning to, you know, the West getting a little bit weaker with Harden maybe moving to Brooklyn. That's going to open up a spot for the Suns. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Chris Paul. He deserves a ring at the end of the day, man. Someone just give him a ring. Let him go to LA.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the end destination. I do want to quickly loop back around before we transition into the Harden news about the jersey thing. I saw Trey Kirby from The Athletic tweeted something like the Suns knew it was going to happen, and they put Kelly Oubre in the shoot because his number is 3, and it was just going to be an easy Photoshop of Chris Paul's face right onto Kelly Oubre's body. So that definitely a smart move there by the Suns if that is the case. But yeah, let's go ahead and now transition into the Harden news.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Could I just offer one last thing? And I thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah. Well, 2 quick things. One, I did hear that the Clippers were reportedly his Chris Paul's first preferred location. But they just don't. I don't think they physically have the assets to get it done. They don't have the first round picks or anything like that. So I think you're right. I think the Lakers couldn't do it either. So I think that he definitely wanted to go to Los Angeles, and I'm sure the Thunder wanted to accommodate that, but they just couldn't. And the side note to that is obviously the Thunder now have 17 first round picks in the next 7 drafts. Which is it's like what you do in 2K. You just keep trading guys until you get all these picks. But good for them for turning Westbrook in. They essentially turned Russell Westbrook into all this. Into their I think it's 3 first round picks, 2 pick swaps, and a couple of young pieces. So good job for Sam Presti for managing this lack of. It's not even a rebuild. It's just kind of like a transitional period after losing Durant and then having Westbrook and Paul George and now losing them. I think they've done a really good job, and I'm sure they might. I think they're going to pull a 2012 Rockets move where you get all those first round picks and you make a push on a superstar. I could see that coming in the next year or 2, but we'll obviously have to wait and see. Yeah. And then the last thing is just how crazy that Pacific Division is going to be, because you have the Lakers, who are by all accounts going to be at the top of the conference again next year, hopefully. The Clippers, who are going to be in that 1 to 4 range as well. The Warriors are going to be back. We don't know exactly where they're going to be right now because their roster's still a little bit in flux, but Curry and Clay and Draymond are back, which is that's enough to make them super competitive every night. The Kings are not a throwaway at all. They're not great, but they're like Fox and Hill. They can put up points and make you work. And now you have this Phoenix team who got so hot at the end of the bubble, has this chemistry, and now they're adding Chris Paul along with Booker and Ayton. So, I mean, that's just a murderer's row of just opponents every night. That division is going to be very highly contested, and I'm excited to watch. I mean, I always watch those games anyway, but I'm really going to be tuning into those games. So I just wanted to get that in there real quick.
Definitely not the NFC East down there in that conference. So let's talk about Harden now. Obviously, we heard Westbrook and Harden both are sort of in trade talks and trade rumors. Most likely, both of them are going to be out of Houston pretty soon. We don't really know where Westbrook is going to end up. I know I've seen Charlotte thrown around. I've seen New York thrown around, a few other places in the mix there. But it seems like the shape is starting to form a little bit more for James Harden, who we learned today is eyeing Brooklyn or Philadelphia as his 2 top choices. I know, Jordan, you talked about Philly a while back, obviously with the Daryl Morey move and whatnot there. It kind of seemed like a pretty predictable thing that we expected to be at least in the conversation, if not a highly likely possibility. Brooklyn seems like the more definitive location, though, from these 2, from what I'm seeing from Shams and Woj or what they're talking about and whatnot. Obviously, Harden has a relationship with KD down there. These situations, this guy, I mean, our favorite player on this podcast, I guess, James Harden, we can't, this guy just can't catch a break. This guy literally just cannot catch a break. I mean, the situation there down in Houston is a disaster. If he goes to Philadelphia, none of us here, I think, are Philadelphia fans. I don't think that situation is going to work either. If he goes to Brooklyn, it's just there's 3 ball dominant players there. Nobody's going to be getting the touches. It's going to be ridiculous. Who's going to be fighting for last shot there? Harden's a good player. He's a very good player, but he's got to make a better move than Brooklyn. This is just not the right choice for him. Henry, what do you think about this one?
I mean, I was thinking the exact same thing, that there's only 1 ball to go around. and there's just going to be so many conflicting egos because James Harden can be pretty, self-centered in terms of like he wants the ball in his hands. Kyrie too. Why do you think he left the Cavs and then made his tenure in the Celtics a disaster, and then he moved to the Nets? Kevin Durant took ball possessions and took time, took efficiency away from Steph Curry because of his presence there solely. So now imagine a court being shared by Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. I don't know how that's going to be managed well, especially if we look at their coaching staff. How is Steve Nash going to manage that? How is Amari Stoudemire's input going to possibly even, stray them away from any huge mistakes down the line, especially in the clutch? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I feel like there's a lot of experimental basketball that's going to be played this season. So as much as it sounds exciting on 2K, it sounds exciting. Don't get me wrong, but on paper, like I said, there's been many examples where you see it looks beautiful on paper, and then throughout the season it just becomes a disaster. So there's no lack of talent. The talent is there, but it's going to be a lack of chemistry, and that's where I think I mentioned it to you guys the other day where I'm like, this is where Denver has them beat in terms of like a team that has team chemistry and team play. They're not very iso ball dominant. The Nets are going to be that. They're literally just going to run iso ball with Harden, Kyrie, or Kevin Durant. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, experimental basketball, but you know what? It's been experimental ever since the bubble started. So why not give it a go? I feel like that's going to be the best place for Harden to go to, because who wants to go to Philly? I feel like Philly's going to be even more of a disaster if he goes there. But giving up, I feel like the Rockets are going to really benefit because they do get Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Jared Allen. And I think they're great assets. I don't care what anybody says, but they're great assets. They're great players. Karis LeVert is very young. We saw what he did in the first in the bubble, carrying that Nets team. So now, what if we go to a better system, just a brand new team to see what happens there. It's going to be interesting. I don't know. Jordan, what do you think? What do you think about your main man, James Harden?
You're muted.
Yeah, I'll get myself off mute there. I just was holding back. I mean, you Russ brings it up at the beginning saying like our guy James Harden can't catch a break, which is like partially a joke. But at the same time, he's also done this to himself, right? This is what happens when you create this style of iso ball play where it's me for 38 minutes a game. I'm going to dribble the ball for 20 seconds on the clock, and everyone else just needs to stand around and be ready for the pass in case I decide to do it. So it's no wonder that it's turned into just a crap show down there. You've already heard that Austin Rivers, Eric Gordon, and PJ Tucker are not happy about their roles and want more money and want a bigger, want more touches and all this other stuff because they've just been reduced to just bystanders and just, standing in the corner waiting for the occasional pass, especially when Westbrook got there. And, there was really even less of, the ball to go around. So I don't feel bad for Houston at all. They set it up this way. They committed to it, and partial credit to them for sticking to it as long as they have. But if they want to blow it up, I mean, I say go for it. I know I think it was Kevin O'Connor had an article in the Ringer today about how trading a star in their prime like this doesn't really ever pan out. And I do agree with this point, to a degree. But if you can get back, Karis LeVert, I think had a really good bubble and is improving and does a lot of good things. Jared Allen is what they call a center, which Houston has not had in a year and a half, basically. And, and then Dinwiddie as well is a very good combo guard, does a lot of good things, can show up in big moments. There's a way for Houston to get that, plus if they can get, I don't know how many picks and stuff the Nets have, but if they can grab some assets there, maybe facilitate a third team in there to get a couple more draft picks or another serviceable player, they can turn this around and be right back in the swing of things in terms of at least being very competitive every night. We don't know exactly what they're going to do with Westbrook yet, although I have a feeling as well that they might just blow that up and, they're not just going to keep Westbrook, although he's got $40 million in his contract, they're not just going to keep him there ball dominating, on a middling, 8 seed every year. But yeah, I mean, as for the Nets thing, it's an interesting fit, right? Kyrie needs the ball, Durant deserves the ball, and Harden is someone who's accustomed to having the ball. So it's going to be very precarious. I mean, I think we've talked about it enough. That situation was already very tepid as it was with new coach and Steve Nash and D'Antoni and Amari Stoudemire and Durant and Kyrie's egos and just the fact that it's right there in basically New York and so many things could go wrong. And now you could be adding this other very touchy element to the mix in James Harden. Like, there's a world where you can't beat them 4 out of 7 games in the playoffs. And it's just like, man, how do you guard, how would the Lakers guard Harden and Kyrie and KD? And then there's a world where like they don't make the finals because things just fall apart. Kyrie is out for 4 months with a shoulder, and Harden and Durant just can't quite make it work at this point in their career. So there's so much combustibility with this move on Brooklyn's end. And, I'm intrigued as naturally as an NBA fan. I think it's must-see TV. I mean, they really will be fun to watch. Whether they boom or bust, it'll be fun to watch them go. So we'll see. I mean, I have a feeling we'll know more come Wednesday around the draft. I think Houston's trying to fight it, but the more that Harden seems to express that he wants to go, I think in the end they're going to probably bend to that and start over there in Houston.
Yeah, I have a couple sort of thoughts on this, and like first being like obviously D'Antoni chose to step away from Houston, and now Harden's trying to go there, and D'Antoni's on that bench. Like I'm wondering if D'Antoni's just like thinking to himself, I can't catch a break, I can't get away from this guy. Like I know, he coached him for however many years there in Houston to some success, but like. He stepped away for a reason. He wasn't happy with what he had down there. And if Harden chooses to go to Brooklyn, I'm just curious in the back of D'Antoni's head, is he kind of thinking like, I'd had my 5 years or whatever with this guy. I needed to get away from him. And now I can't even do that. So I find that a little bit funny. But yeah, I mean, you guys hit the nail on the head. It's just like, this ball is not going to move on this team. It's going to be ISO Kyrie, ISO James Harden, ISO KD. It's going to be back and forth. And like, even if you're giving away to like other players who are pretty ball dominant, I think, and Dinwiddie and LeVert, like still Harden coming back in a deal like this would still like not even balance out the number of touches those two guys are giving up. So that's problematic in itself. It's just not a good fit. And here in the comments, we have somebody saying that the Sixers are a better fit. They are a better fit. But is that even a good fit? I personally don't think so. I'm curious, do either of you guys think that there is a good fit for Harden in this league right now in terms of where he might see the most success? Because like I really like I was thinking about this all day, and I couldn't think of a single team that I think he would have the success that I think he wants on. Unless he goes and plays with like LeBron. Like I don't see it happening for him.
No, that's not even gonna work.
Yeah, is there any team though? Is there any team that Harden could go to and really, become a contender?
I think this is how I think about it, and how I've started to try and group players, especially in the upper echelon. You have players that year to year make your team an instant title contender, make them relevant. You're going to be able to mix and match different pieces of the roster, around those guys, and they're still going to be successful no matter what kind of system. You obviously have those guys like LeBron, Steph Curry, KD, like those, Anthony Davis, Giannis. Those are your automatics, right? Although you have to kind of tinker around Giannis, but like, you can go out there and you're going to win games and you're going to be fine. And you have that next level of guys, and it's only a few players every generation, but I think Harden fits the build where it's just like he is so ingrained, and I keep harping on, but he's so ingrained into this playing style that I don't think you can take him out of it. It's like imagine developing a bad habit for so many years, and you can't change it. It's just impossible. And even though you're with Harden, you're guaranteed honestly to win like at least 40 games every year, 45 probably. But I just think that there's an automatic ceiling. Like the ceiling is right there. It's what I thought with those Clippers teams with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin back in the day. It's what I thought with even the Clippers next year. I think there's just automatic ceilings with the way people play and the styles that they play, and it just prevents them from ever really having a shot. Like I think I would put a lot of money that James Harden probably doesn't even make the finals unless he goes to Brooklyn. But even if they do, I don't know if they'll actually win it. I just don't see James Harden as a guy that's just going to end his career with a ring and the success that he ultimately wants. I just think that there's a limit to it. And it's happened with some guys in the past. They can get really close. Chris Paul's another prime example of that, right? Steve Nash, they've gotten to the second round of the conference finals, but just haven't really been able to get that finals appearance in there, or get that elusive ring. And I think that's just what it is with James Harden. Like I don't go into each season like, man, Rockets may do it this year. Like I've never thought that way for the entirety of James Harden time in Houston, and I'll continue to think that way until something drastic changes. But the laws of average, it's not going to change. It's just not going to happen.
Henry, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean,
you could say I'm right.
yeah, I was thinking the same. I don't think there's.
You can add
Yeah,
that to it.
I don't think there's been 1 year where I looked at the Rockets and I'm like, yeah, this is the team. This is the team that's going to take it all
Not
this
at
year.
all.
No,
Not at all.
yeah, not at all. Especially because exactly what Jordan was just bringing up. It's just either James Harden turns into a spot up shooter if he wants to go to the Nets, or it's not going to work. Exactly, it's not going to work because when I'm thinking about it, like Kevin Durant when he joined the Warriors, which I still think is the most snake move in NBA history, he did turn Steph Curry, who just came off an MVP season, into almost a spot up shooter. We didn't see, of course Steph Curry still did, Steph Curry things, but it kind of took away from some of, his magic and everything, Like I saw him in the corner a lot, standing in the corner a lot, waiting for the ball. The ball got dished out to him, he became a corner shooter. And I'm like, okay, if James Harden wants to make it work in Brooklyn, predominantly Kyrie's not going to be a spot up shooter ever in his life because he's way too ball dominant and he dribbles, but like also James Harden. But I can see James Harden being more of that spot up shooter if he decides to, to take that role, which I know he's not. I mean, when you're averaging over 30 points a game in multiple seasons, I don't think you want to average, 24 off of spot up shooting. So
I don't blame him for not wanting to be like a spot up shooter, by the way. If I was scoring 30 a game too, I wouldn't be like, yeah, I'll take a back seat.
This is like weird.
It is weird.
Here's the thing about Harden. I don't think he'd even be successful as a spot-up shooter just because of the way he plays. I mean, he's not the athletic sort of freak that you have to be, I think, to be like a sort of successful spot-up shooter. Like even if you look at like Ray Allen later on in his career and whatnot, James Harden doesn't have that ability. I don't think he would succeed in that capacity. He needs to be an on-ball player, and if he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's just not the kind of guy and that's why Chris Paul kind of had to defer. I know the sort of skill level between the two was at a certain point at that stage in their career, but James Harden's not the kind of guy that's going to defer, and that's going to upset Kyrie. And it might not upset KD as much, but it should upset KD even more because KD is the guy that's, he should be the guy on that team. And I just feel like it's going to be a major problem.
I agree. And I think back to what Henry said about Durant going to the Warriors, that's my example, right? As I talked about, like you could plug KD, who was one of the 3 or 4 best players on the planet after that year with Oklahoma City, as he was for most of the decade. You plug him right in, and it's a little different because obviously Steve Kerr had a very well established system where they were just putting guys in, and it was free flowing offense, and it worked. But like if you had taken James Harden at that time and put him in the Warriors system, I don't know if you get back-to-back titles because it just doesn't quite flow. KD came in there and was like, yeah, I'll still get 28 a game. I'll be as efficient as you've ever seen me. I'll be the best. I'll have the best passing numbers that I've had in my career. Like he took his game to the next level to fit in with the Warriors. And he's just because he has that ability. I just don't think that James Harden has that flexibility in him. The best version of James Harden for this Nets team, if he were to go, would be the one right before he went to Houston, where he was 6th man of the year. He'd be perfect. He'd be brilliant. You have run KD and Kyrie out there for the first 10 minutes of the quarter, bring in Harden, and you always have a constant ball handler and a guy attacking the rim. But obviously we don't have that right now because Harden's at a different stage in his career. So it is what it is. And, like I said, I think we're going to know more about the trade come Wednesday. I think draft night is going to be crazy. I think it's going to be full of a ton of trades, a ton of like, oh my God, can you believe Team X did this? So it's gonna be wild to see.
Speaking of draft night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
I threw the alley-oop.
There's the alley-oop. Yeah, there it is. 8 p.m. Eastern right here. Nuts and Bolts, NBA Baseline. We're teaming up with them. Live streaming 8 p.m. Eastern. Come and join us for that. I'll remind you guys at the end of the show. But let's dive into some of this other stuff. The only real concrete, I guess, trade / signing that we have is the Schroeder news. Dennis Schroeder going to Jordan's Lakers. It's not a done deal yet. It is sort of coming on the heels. I think we kind of expected Rondo to opt out of his contract there because he thinks he's going to get paid. KCP has done the same as well today. So that was all stuff that we expected. I think the Schroeder move is a pretty smart move by the Lakers. I don't necessarily know if he fits the same play style as Rondo, but I think he can control the floor the way that Rondo did, and he's gonna score a little bit more. He's not gonna pass the ball as well, but I think that those two sort of facets of his game will balance out and fill the gap in an appropriate way from losing Rondo. Jordan, I'm gonna save you for last here because I know you got a little bit more to say. So Henry, what you got on this one?
In terms of filling in the gaps, I don't think he's gonna do, honestly, playoff Rondo. I saw a tweet. It was funny. Like whatever team picks up Rondo, they're going to be paying mediocre Rondo in the regular season, and then they're going to be waiting for playoff Rondo to come, which is worth the money, which is true, you know. And I thought that was hilarious. But in terms of the most important basketball to play is playoffs. You know, that's when it matters. When it matters the most. So that's when Rondo comes in big. I think his performance if honestly the Lakers didn't have Rondo in the finals, if you were one of the players, let's say, that opted out with Avery Bradley, before the bubble, I don't think the Lakers would have had such a huge gap between everybody because he was just such a floor general, and that's how he's been his whole career. When I think of Dennis Schroeder, I think more of a scoring point guard, not really necessarily as a floor general. That's what the Lakers really benefited off because when LeBron wasn't on the floor, when Rondo was on the floor, he was dictating the show. He really carried the momentum on both sides of the court, and that's going to be pretty big shoes to fill for Dennis Schroeder. I know Jordan's excited for Dennis Schroeder. I just want to know why exactly, so I want to pass it on.
Well, I'm excited for a couple of reasons. So one, we got rid of Danny Green, right? And we all, we saw, Danny Green does, like, as much as I was ragging on him, obviously he brings some defensive chops and veteran championship experience. But I think he's on the wrong side of 30, and I don't think he's getting any better at this point in his career. So the fact that they're able to move him and what's going to be the 28th pick to Oklahoma City for Schroeder, who is another 1 year deal guy, so they'll have some cap space after next year to work around if they want to re-sign him or not. But he's a lightning quick guard. He just came off the best season of his career. I thought he was top 2 in the Sixth Man of the Year race for the whole season. He spent a year playing with Chris Paul, which only helped his game, as evidenced by the fact that he was scoring 19 a game off the bench. He shot 38.5% from three. Is a very good spot up shooter and corner 3-point shooter as well, which, as we know, with LeBron teams, you need a lot of those guys because they're going to generate a lot of open looks from LeBron kicking out on those drives or AD getting double teamed or whatever you want to call it. And he just provides a nice spark, right? I mean, Rondo, you're losing some things with not having Rondo. We're going to assume that Rondo's not going to be back. He's probably going to command too much money, and you're going to lose that. Like, Henry's not wrong at all with playoff Rondo, with that veteran experience, that those defensive instincts that I think he has that most people in the league don't, even at his age still. I think he's got just a high IQ of the game, and Schroeder probably doesn't match him in that level. But then again, I don't think most guys do. So you're losing that part of it for sure. But if they can sign, they're looking at Wes Matthews to kind of replace the Danny Green void. He's another defensive-minded guy. So they can work around the
Danny Green void is a strong statement there, Jordan.
I was being courteous. But they can work around the things that are being left off the table with Schroeder. But I think the positives far outweigh the negatives with him. He's going to be a guy that I can imagine him, like last year, Lakers had LeBron going out at the 6-minute mark of every quarter. And now you're not just bringing in random bench guys. You're bringing in a 6 Man of the Year candidate in Schroeder. Now you have Schroeder and Anthony Davis running the pick and roll. I think that's going to help their offense at the end of the first and third quarter when LeBron is sitting, which is an area they struggled in last year. I think it's going to vastly improve it. You're going to see a lot of good pick and roll. Schroeder can get to the rim. You have to pay attention to him. It's not like, Rondo or Avery Bradley run this where like guys can go under the screens and, really just focus on AD. I think Schroeder's going to put a lot of pressure on the defenses there. So definitely a really great first move for the Lakers. And for those who don't know, the reason that it hasn't happened yet, even though Woj has already tweeted and written about it, is because of the stipend rule where you can't trade first-round picks back-to-back years. So the Lakers have to make the pick for Oklahoma City on Wednesday. So whoever they pick, it's going to be for Oklahoma City. He'll wear the Lakers hat for reasons unknown for like 5 minutes, and then he'll be off to Oklahoma City for Schroeder. So that deal will be finalized, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, whatever you want to call it. But I was worried about what LA was going to do with Caldwell Pope and Rondo and these guys opting out of their contracts, Avery Bradley as well. And I'm happy to see that they started off free agency with a bang in this, and I'm really excited to see what they have moving forward with some other rumors floating around.
Yeah, and some
was there rumors about Serge Ibaka?
Yeah, some of those other names, Ibaka, Wes Matthews, like you said, those are two good pieces actually to fit the bill for what LA is theoretically going to be losing here. I know, Jordan, I was giving you a hard time about Ibaka. I don't actually feel that strongly about Ibaka. I think that he's going to be a good fit alongside LeBron there and alongside AD as well, because especially later on in his career, he has developed the three ball. He's been able to stretch the floor much better than he was earlier on in his career, where he was just known for sort of being a defensive presence. He's not really the defensive threat that he was earlier on in his career, but he's still much better in terms of upgrading the defense than what LA had to back up AD sort of at the center and power forward position. So I think that's a very good pickup. Like you said, Schroeder, running the pick and roll with AD is going to be lethal. I mean, Schroeder was successful running the pick and roll with Steven Adams. Like, can you imagine if you upgrade Steven Adams to Anthony Davis like that? That's pretty exciting, I think, in my mind. And yeah, Wes Matthews, well, he has had his injury troubles, and I think he's significantly dropped since getting that massive contract from Dallas a few years back. He's still sort of you want to talk about like a very good off-ball player. Like, he can still fit that role very, very, very well.
You just need like 20 minutes a game. You're not looking to fill like a starting role. So, and I kind of wanted to put the link in here too. It literally just posted on the website, so please check it out. But it covers all this. It covers like literally Ibaka. I edited to put in the Schroeder deal. I think I covered a couple other pieces. Wes Matthews, the Morris twins. Like there's a lot of names. I listed about 10 of them in there. So go in there. Let's see how many I get right. I have good feelings about some of them. So we're going to see as the free agency actually starts on Friday.
The odds say that Jordan's going to be 99% right on that article from what we've seen on this podcast in the past. But like the key also in terms of the other names that you've listed there is like the Lakers aren't done here. Like this is like the first couple of days of this whole entire thing. Like there's still a lot of work to be done with the Lakers, and I don't think by any means they're done here. Whether or not they land some of these guys, I think is up for question. But I think they're going to be fighting, and a lot of these guys who are ring chasing, guys that are going to be willing to come in there on veteran minimum contract. Yeah, you get them every single season, and I think that they certainly have the potential to pick up names there. Also, Boogie's kind of up in the air too. I think that's kind of an interesting piece to watch as well.
Tristan Thompson, wouldn't be surprised if he reunites.
You want to bring Tristan Thompson?
I'm not saying it's like for the best or not, but that's just somebody who I've like read a little bit about, and I mean it just makes sense, right? It's the LeBron got Thompson paid after the 16 finals, and they've been buddies, and plus he's married to one of the Kardashians, so it just fits.
He's seems like a pretty LA guy. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'd rather Cavs not run a lineup with Drummond, Love, and Thompson all on the floor at the same time, which they did do once last season, which was kind of brutal to watch. But let's just hope that never happens again. So you can take Tristan Thompson.
And that was Cavs basketball with Raj.
Right, Cavs basketball, right there. But yeah, I think that the Lakers are. I don't think they're going to drop off in any way whatsoever with these moves. I think they're going to stay certainly on pace. They're still going to, I think, go into next season the favorites to win the championship. And these are very, very good signings here. So a couple other sort of names that have been thrown out over the past few days. Obviously, Paul Millsap's contract. We don't know quite what's going to happen there. Robin Lopez was another one that's opting out. DeMar DeRozan is opting in, having that pretty big $27+ million contract there. Otto Porter, getting paid more than DeMar DeRozan right now, opting into that contract with Chicago, kind of crazy. A few other names out there. Is there anybody else that either of you guys want to hone in on? We mentioned KCP opting out here. Chris Dunn being another name. I know, Jordan, that you kind of wanted to push to maybe push him to LA as well.
Make some calls.
Yeah, are there any other names here from this slot or any that I didn't mention that you're kind of interested? Either of you guys are interested in like seeing where they do end up?
I just want to see if the Lakers get rid of Kyle Kuzma one way or another, because his name's always floating around, in trade rumors and everything. And he actually just tweeted. He said, "All right, enough disrespect on my name. You will be reminded." So he hears everything.
Oh, we got to piss off Kyle Kuzma. Love it.
So, is it worth? Because I think in the trade package for DeMar DeRozan, it would have been Danny Green and Kyle Kuzma. And I think that would have
hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, I know how much Jordan hates DeMar DeRozan, but that's another conversation. But I'm trying to see, are they willing to give up Kyle Kuzma? Because he is I think he's a huge asset for just the Laker fan base too. As much shit as he gets, he came in with playing with Lonzo and Brandon Ingram and stuff. He is part of that young core that was supposed to stay, and the only one that stayed. So to get rid of a guy like him, I think it would just hurt the Lakers more than anything, maybe. But then I also think about, the dumb passes he makes, especially in the playoffs, behind the head. I think we all remember that. I highlight those type of things. So I don't know. In Rob Pelinka's mind, there's anything can happen. In Jordan's mind, anything can happen. Vice versa.
I think one thing we have to talk about too is Henry. I mean, I feel like we haven't talked enough about the Celtics. I mean, the Gordon Hayward situation is interesting because he's really considering maybe not opting into that $34 million, which we joke is like no brainer. But he's had obviously the worst luck since he got there. I think he's had an absolute awful time in Boston from day one, and it's not his fault. Things out of his control, and his role hasn't quite been obviously with the emergence of Tatum and Brown. He hasn't been the focal point like maybe he thought he would have been going there. And so I think that's interesting too. Do they convince him to opt in and then do a sign and trade? I know there's a lot of Miles Turner for Hayward, Miles Turner and Oladipo for Hayward and Kemba and something else. There's a lot of like Celtics Pacers rumors out there right now. So I'm interested to see what happens there because I mean, the Celtics are really only like a piece or two away last year from being in there. And realistically, those pieces were at the point guard and center position. So if they could bring in a guy like Oladipo or Turner or even just one of them, it would, I'm not saying it would, vault them automatically, especially with how good the Nets and the Heat are still going to be. But it definitely keeps them very firmly in that conversation. It's something to keep an eye on as we get towards, Friday.
They have the best coach in that conversation too. So that
oh yeah. Yeah,
agreed.
There's just a lot of conflicting reports. Like, I know you guys saw that. Reportedly, Victor Oladipo was like talking to other teams right after the games, like, "Hey, can I come play with you guys?" And then he made a statement saying, "I never said those type of things. I'm fully committed to Indiana." But I'm like, you know what? I can kind of see Victor Oladipo going up to Fred VanVleet and be like, "Hey, you guys got another room or anything or another spot?" But see, it's just like. I know you bring up the Pacers because there are rumors there. Believe me, I want Gordon Hayward out of there. He's like our kryptonite because of things out of his control. I understand that, his injuries got the better of him. So I think it's time for him to move on from this Celtics chapter. And I know Danny Ainge is going to make the right move. But we just need a big, honestly. Like, I know you hate Kemba. And you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of Kemba.
Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Kemba either, especially with his playoff performance. So, hopefully get players like Oladipo and Miles Turner. I think that'll finally complete our missing gaps in our positions. Because our guards, in terms of our shooting guards and our small forwards, are covered. Tatum, and Jason Tatum, and also Jaylen Brown. But then I feel like we will have to give up a piece like Marcus Smart. And that's our glue guy. So giving up Marcus Smart would be too huge of a risk, at least in my opinion, because he puts up his own against the best players and the best teams. So it's a lot of factors. And then
he's the heart and soul, really, of that team.
Yeah, really, really. So like he's the one that really he's like our Ron Artest, like honestly. In that aspect about being the heart and soul.
Nobody is truly ever Ron Artest except for Ron Artest. But in emotional level, I agree.
Yeah. I'm talking about the elbowing and everything. No, but that's the thing, and I know there's just watching the Celtics, especially against the Heat. I think we needed that series because it exposed all of our flaws, and especially in the center position and the point guard position. But in the regular season, Kemba Walker was playing good. He was playing Kemba Walker basketball. But in the playoffs, something happened. Nobody was able to not everybody was able to adjust to the bubble as well as like others may have. Mm-hmm. So I think it might have gotten the better of Kemba Walker. It showed a lot of flaws in his game, and how undersized he really is compared to these guards and these forwards. But I don't know. I trust Danny Ainge. I trust him, sort of, kind of,
Well, let me ask you this, because I did, the Pacers are the hot rumor with the Celtics that I was talking about, but there's also one subtle one that kind of got brought up, and it hasn't quite gained traction because we don't know what this team wants to do. But Utah is also kind of stagnant in their own, like, hey, we're going to be like a 5 or 6 seed every year, and they have their flaws that prevent them from advancing further. So, like, the one thing that was heard too was, possibly Hayward going back there, right? That's where he blossomed. He was drafted by them. They love him over there, the Mormons and everything. And, so I wonder if, like, obviously the player that they want to target at center position would be Rudy Gobert, who's one of the best defensive players in the league, 2-time defensive player of the year. I wonder, would like Hayward and say picks 14 and 26, like would that be enough to entice Utah? Because you definitely have to offer more than just Hayward for straight up. But like, would Utah do it? Some kind of variation of that deal, and would you want a guy like Gobert if he became available? Because I think it's very like low, like simmering right now, but I think they could heat up as we get towards draft night as well, depending, because the Mike Conley thing didn't quite work out for them, so they're kind of in flux as well.
I mean, that's a trade that I feel will work out best just for Boston, because if we're going to talk about a Gordon Hayward Donovan Mitchell duo, like I feel like they're gonna miss another piece. They have that. They have. I feel like the Utah Jazz are one of those complete teams where they do have assets on every factor in the floor. Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, center. They have it all covered. That's the Celtics don't. So that trade would I believe it would only benefit the Celtics, because then the Jazz are gonna have to deal with Gordon Hayward's, prone to injuries, and just all these other factors. His loss in confidence. I remember he missed a wide open layup in one of the games in the bubble, and that's when I was like, okay, this may be getting the mental toll on him too, and that plays a huge factor. We see some players that can really bounce back mentally from injuries, and Gordon Hayward was able to do that somewhat in the regular season, but wasn't really as consistent. So the Jazz are going to have to deal with that. I don't care, as long as we get Rudy Gobert. Honestly, in my opinion.
I could even see Conley being thrown into some trade talks there, for being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of didn't have the year that everyone thought he was going to have with Utah. So I think there's a couple of teams that definitely could be looking to shake things up. I know Kevin put in there too. Another guy's interesting, Christian Wood. Obviously, was kind of like sneakily the Pistons' best player last year.
Yeah,
essentially, along with Derrick Rose.
He's really good.
He is, and there's like everything I read is like there's not a lot of like pinpoint rumors, right? Everything just says like he's going to be sought after. People are going to be going after him. Going to be offering multi-year deals, trying to get. Obviously, I don't think it'll take much to get him out of Detroit. But I've heard like good and bad. I've heard like he might go to. They talk about the Suns. That way you could have an in and out thing with him and Ayton. In terms of defense, and I haven't really heard too many other teams. But the thing that I hear too is people are worried that he's like the next Hassan Whiteside too, where like he gets the big contract and kind of reverts back to some of the issues and bad habits that he had. So he's a guy that I personally like. I think in the right situation, if you get him, even if you're worried about those bad habits, if you got him in the right team with the right like development coaches and stuff like that, I think he could be really valuable. He's going to be way too far out of the Lakers and some of the other teams high up near the tax. He's going to be out of their price range, but it's interesting to see what middle level teams might have a shot at him.
Yeah, I kind of want to close things out here. Just mention Paul Millsap. Get some obligatory Nuggets talk on here now, because it seems like he, in all likelihood, is not going to be returning to the Nuggets. Seems like that money's probably going to be going to Jeremy Grant after that performance that he had there in the playoffs. Millsap, I know the one team that I saw thrown out there was the Blazers. I'm kind of intrigued to see what the Blazers do, because I think the Blazers could they could definitely make some moves. I don't know if they need to go forward with the Dame McCollum duo. I think they could get some real value out of CJ McCollum. But I think bringing Paul Millsap there, if they do decide to keep McCollum, could be a smart choice as well. Speaking of Boston, though, I would love to see Paul Millsap play in Boston, take a small contract, go play there. I think that he'd be a very good fit for that team, especially defensively. He could even fill the minutes that Tice is playing right now. Like Tice is the starting center there, and not really known to be a star player by any means. And I know Paul Millsap is well past his prime, but I think he can contribute in a great degree there. Is there any other teams for Paul Millsap that you think might be a good fit, other than Cleveland, of course?
I think at this point in his career, if he signs a very low-level contract, he's not going to be obviously lighting it up the way he used to be in his Atlanta days, but he's got, kind of like in a Rondo sense, he's got that veteran IQ. He's a very smart defensive player. He can still give you, I think, anywhere from 20 to 30 good minutes there on that end. I agree with you as well. I didn't see anything else. I even tried to search quick. I don't see anything other than Portland right now. But I imagine there'll be some teams kind of in that Portland range, right? They're making the playoffs. Maybe Dallas makes a call.
Phoenix could be in the running there too.
Phoenix, yeah, there's going to be teams. Honestly, even if the Clippers, if Harrell walks and they trade Lou Williams which is another rumor, Lou Williams possibly to Dallas for a first round pick. So if they like dump those guys, and they don't have a lot of extra money, but like they're looking for a veteran guy who can do better than Harold did in the playoffs last year. I think there's a lot of teams out west that'll be looking for him. I don't know, what his preference is in terms of going back east. I just think, he's been a West guy for a little bit, but it'll be interesting. He's definitely valuable at the right price. So I'm interested to see where he ends up as well.
Any thoughts there, Henry?
Come on, Henry, you didn't have your Paul Millsap page-long notes ready? Come on. You didn't know this was a Paul Millsap podcast?
It's like Paul Millsap is turning 36 years old. He's like one of the oldest. Yeah, he's one of the oldest players in the league, but he shows value in Denver. So that's why I still have hope for him, because I saw how much of a role he played for a contender. Because the Denver Nuggets are a contender, so if he can do that on a contending team, I wonder what he can do elsewhere. So that's just the only thing. Like these players that I'm just realizing more and more every day, or like as the season keeps approaching, that the players that we grew up with, in our childhoods, like they're getting old. They're the old heads now,
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to think about. I remember when I think about Paul Millsap, I would think about the Atlanta Hawks and like that team, And then I wasn't like not that too long ago, but like now when you look at it, and you're like, wow, he's 36. Like
5 years.
How much more? Yeah, like how much more does he have left in the tank? And then that just goes for all these other players that came up around the same time. So I don't know. I'm very ambiguous about him, but you know what? He holds a special place in my heart. So wherever he goes, I wish the best for him.
He could be one of these guys that goes and ring chases and with the Lakers. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he signs a minimum there.
Well, who's going to be ring chasing. I think there's like, I guess I'll call it my first official free agency prediction. I'll come ready for, if we want to do something maybe Friday. I don't know what your guys' schedules are, but it might be good because free agency kicks off at 6:00 Friday.
Yeah.
So it might be good to like do it in the middle. But I'll come with more prediction, like actual concrete things. But I'm just gonna call this right now. I think Melo comes to the Lakers. I'm not saying I'm not giving an opinion either way. I'm just saying I think he's been flirting with it. It's been in the rumors, and LeBron's
That's been in the rumor mill for a long time.
Yeah, Melo's been rumored to the Lakers since like 2014 when he re-signed with the Knicks for all that money. But like, I just think that at this point, I think he wants a ring really badly. He just saw the Lakers smoke his team, Portland, in the first round. Mm-hmm. And so, he wants to play. He's buddies with LeBron. He's buddies with AD. He's friends. He lives out in LA, in the offseason. So I could really see, like, the only issue is he definitely wants to start still. Melo is that he's going to just go to his NBA grave being that stubborn. But I don't see where he could potentially start unless they moved AD to the 5 permanently and put him at the 4, but I don't think that'll happen either. So he'd have to be willing to come off the bench and play just 20, 25 minutes a game, and sometimes close out stuff. But I could see like the biannual exception of like $3.5 million going to him for a year or two with like a player option or something. I'm just gonna call the Melo to the Lakers now. Look at it. Henry's so upset that he had to do that because he guess he's not a Melo guy. But I'm just gonna call that one right now.
You see that Henry Smolder that it froze on there before he was kicked out of there. But yeah, I mean, not bad timing because we are closing things up here. So you can find us, there at our social medias. But also, like we said earlier, please be sure to tune in on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Come over to the Periscope, whatever it may be, whatever your preferred choice of watching is. We're going to be covering the draft live with NBA Baseline Podcast, joining us here, which we're really excited to be partnering with them for this live stream. So please, please, please join us for that. Also be sure to check out the merch store, bonfire/store/NBS or NBS, teamnbsmerch.com.
You're always so good. I could never
every single time. Every single time. But be sure to check us out there. And as always, come back and join us for the next episode. We'll see you all then.